Welcome to the podcast for and about Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Brittany Felix, and every Monday through Friday I'll be talking about a different aspect relating to the Springs, including upcoming events, restaurant reviews, local business spotlights, media coverage about the Springs, public works projects, local activities, answering your questions about the city, and much, much more. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the updates. And also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find links to all of those social media accounts at springspodcast.com/social media. The Colorado Springs podcast is proudly sponsored by Elevation Hydration. Elevation Hydration is the only hydration therapy clinic serving Colorado Springs, and they are dedicated to helping you elevate your life. They use intravenous vitamin therapy to help athletes needing a boost of energy or help recovering after a tough competition, people experiencing cold-like symptoms or dehydration from the flu, anyone needing to recover quickly from a rough night out. I'm looking at you, college kids. And just anyone wanting a healthy alternative to preventative care. They have a wide variety of hydration packages to help address whatever your needs are. They're conveniently located inside Lush Beauty Lounge at 812 Village Center Drive, and if you mention this podcast during your visit, you'll receive $10 off any hydration package. To learn more about Elevation Hydration or to schedule an appointment, visit springspodcast.com/hydrate. Welcome to episode 5 of the Colorado Springs podcast. As I promised yesterday, I do have my husband Brian on the show with me today, just so that you can get to know him a little bit better. And we're going to start off with having Brian tell you just a few of the different things that he's into, different hobbies that he likes, and yeah, just have him take it away.
Well, I enjoy pretty much everything outdoors, hunting, fishing, archery. Since I moved out here, I got back into mountain biking too.
Okay, and obviously Colorado's a pretty good place for people who are outdoorsy. What is it about Colorado Springs specifically that kind of drew you here and made you fall in love with it when we visited for the very first time back in 2015?
I don't really know for sure. It's kind of hard to articulate that. It just felt right. A lot of it had to do with just the scenery and the general feel and vibe of the area.
And I know I mentioned a little bit earlier this week in an episode where I kind of answered some of these similar questions about myself. When we were here in 2015, one of the major things that we fell in love with was Garden of the Gods. And I know it was, at least for me, a major deciding factor in wanting to come back here and just kind of what kept Colorado Springs in my mind when we were back in Indiana and making plans to completely change our life. Did that factor into anything for you?
Yeah, I thought about Garden of the Gods a lot. That was one of the few places we had time to visit while we were here. I mean, it's obviously an awesome place, and now that we're here, it's nice to be able to drive over there and spend time there whenever we want. I mean, we're only a few miles away at this point, so it's nice to have that just down the road from here.
And so when you go out on the weekends, because you work a typical office job, so when you go out on the weekends or when you kind of just get out to escape that, what are some things that you like to do?
Mostly either ride my bike or just hiking. There's so many trails and different places to go just here right around town that that's pretty much what I do every weekend.
And so where's your favorite place to go hiking?
Favorite place to hike? It's kind of a toss-up. There's a lot of different, I really like Ute Valley, Red Rocks Open Space, and then Palmer Park's got some nice trails too.
And what about for biking? Where are your favorite places around town for that?
Kind of the same places. Ute Valley Park is kind of my go-to place right now. It's a really cool place to go ride, and there's rarely ever very many people out there, especially once you get away from the parking lot. So it's definitely my favorite.
And so now that we have been here in Colorado Springs for a few months now, is it still kind of living up to what you had in your mind before we moved here? Or is kind of the new wearing off and it's just starting to feel like any other city? What does it feel like to you now that we've been here for a little while?
I still love it. Arguably I like it better now than I did when we first visited, just because I've had time to go out and explore more and check out some of the different places to, hike and mountain bike and everything. So, actually living here gives me way more time to get out and explore. And, I haven't even been to all the different places I could go just here in town. So, yeah, I love it.
What would you say is one of the most surprising things that you've discovered about this city, or just something that you just did not expect before we moved here?
First thing that comes to mind is probably the people. I've been here long enough now to have got out and ran around quite a bit. And, I've met a few different people, and everybody I've met's been super cool. And I was kind of worried that, when we moved out here, that the people who had been here for a while would look down on new people moving in, because it kind of seems like the in thing to do right now is for people to move to Colorado. But my experience has been the exact opposite of that. Everybody's been super cool and really welcoming.
And so if somebody were considering moving here and you could give them one tip or piece of advice or tell them one thing about the city that you think they should know, what would that be?
Well, probably I'd tell them to save their money. Because from where we come from, it's housing is pretty expensive here, even though it's not near as bad as, like Denver or that area, but it's still pretty pricey compared to what we're used to. So depending on where they were coming from, I would tell them to, I'd probably just let them know what the housing situation is and, just make sure that they knew what they were getting into.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's great advice, and that's actually going to be a topic that I will talk about on the podcast next week. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to my husband, since I'm probably going to be referring to him a lot on the podcast. And if you still haven't found anything to do this weekend, make sure that you listen to Monday's episode or check out the calendar of events on my website. You can find those at springspodcast.com/events, and that is plural. So I hope that you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you back here on Monday for yet another episode of the Colorado Springs Podcast.